This is how they line up. It is Lauke on pole. This is how they finished the race yesterday. Jason Macris second, the championship leader. John Paul Drake and Peter Patton in the Radical from third. It's all Radicals from here on in. Carmelo Bonaventura will go from sixth. Stephen Champion and Tony Haggard will be ones to watch from 9th and 10th. And amongst them, Chris Sutton and Phil Hughes, who's a regular in the championship. So standing start yesterday, but to mix things up, Rusty, rolling start today. So it's a different scenario for the Prototype Series competitors.
Mixture of chassis in this and some people on double duty. So you'll recognise some names that have appeared earlier in the day in Radical competition. But I'm sorry, I'm looking for Chris Perini at the moment because we reported in that Radical race that he had an issue. I'm not sure I can see his car out there at the moment. We'll focus more on the race start, Richard.
Well, and was due to start this one from the back of the field because didn't start yesterday's race due to his Radical Cup commitment. So we'll wait and see there. Field set for a rolling start. Mark Lauke in the middle of the field. The green and black car is Jason Macris, the championship leader. Gee, it's a messy rolling start, but JP Drake looking down the inside. The gold and black Wolf GBO8 gets a whole shot down the inside and wheel to wheel with Lauke. Macris sweeps across in front. Lauke second, Peter Patton going the long way round at turn one in the Radical. There's three different cars in the top three as they go to turn two.
Great stuff from Patton on cold tyres through turn one, and he got a yield from that, didn't he?
Yeah, he really did. Garth Walden, who's running this car, said we're really excited about this 18-lap race. We think the Radical's better over a longer distance. So watch for the Sydney sider to come on strong in car number 31 as this race evolves. But it's the championship leader, Jason Macris, and the Wolf GB08 CN prototype who leads the field. The defending champion second, Patton third, John Paul Drake in fourth place. Great start. Phil Hughes, 8th to 5th on the opening lap and pretty bold around the outside of turn one on cold Kumho tyres.
You'll notice at the front some differences in the beautiful, sleek designs of these machines. There are different chassis, and the Wolf's a real eye-catcher, isn't it?
Yeah, they are, and they're a proper international style prototype that race at a very high level. This is the first time we've seen them racing in Australian motorsport. 3 cars in the country, 2 running this weekend. We've had Sage Murdoch in the 3rd car for Jam Motorsport this year. He's not here this weekend. We're hoping that car's back out for the final round of the championship. So this is an 18-lap race. There'll be a little bit of conservation involved here, Rusty, managing a race distance. This will be 30 minutes of pretty competitive motorsport here as Patton is under pressure from Drake, who gets a very good run out of the final corner and a slipstream on the one down into turn one. Let's see what happens in the braking zone. Uphill into turn 2.
Nice defensive stuff there from Patton. He takes the mid-track and makes it very difficult for Drake. Meantime, look at the battle unfolding here. I thought Lauke in that final few corners before they come onto the main straight here at Sydney Motorsport Park looked a little loose. In fact, I think he's having a real dip. He's having a real crack here at trying to get by Macris.
It's been a challenging start to his title defence across the first 3 rounds, Rusty, and it hasn't gone to plan for the South Australian. Really delighted to grab his first win in his title defence yesterday. He's still in the hunt. He can still win this championship with a big weekend here. Needs to take some points out of Jason Macris, who leads the standings. But the series has a points calculation where you drop your 2 worst races at the end of the year. Not a drop your worst round, but 2 races out of the course of the season. Macris has been super consistent. So in a scenario like that, he actually loses out more compared to the guys that have had a DNF or a low score, like Mark Lauke and like JP Drake. That's why the championship is still very much up for grabs.
Just looking at the timing, looks like, is that a 5-second penalty for Drake that's being applied there?
So he jumped the rolling start. I thought he went really early from the 2nd row. He looked like he was out of line as well, and that's why he got down the inside there at turn 1. Lauke tucked up under the big rear wing of the Wolf GBO8 as he goes down into turn 1. The little West WX10 1000cc motorcycle engine. The car weighs 500 kilos, ringing wet. Big Honda power plant in the Wolf that leads the way. It's got more grunt, but it's almost twice the weight of the car behind. So they're vastly different ways of extracting speed out of two cars that ultimately do a very similar lap time.
And that's reflected, in fact, in some of the times we're seeing in the various sectors. That's changing now, but Lauke was very quick on that previous lap through Sector 1, Patton quick through Sector 2, and Drake was the fastest through Sector 3.
And then three different types of race cars doing it. Yeah, exactly right. And if there's ever a racetrack that's going to expose the strengths and weaknesses of different cars, it's Sydney Motorsport Park, with a combination of a really long straight, some real high speed, high aero corners, and then a couple of slow corners. Wow, off the road, JP Drake at turn 7, that really fast left-hander at Corporate Hill, and you could see him shaking his head that he was able to catch that and keep the car on the road without having A, a big accident, or B, a really high-speed spin.
One of the most exhilarating corners that you'll find, and you can't see the exit as you swing left there, but it requires big commitment. Let's look here at the replay. We're not quite sure, you know, clearly he may not have been on the ideal line, or perhaps going just a little too hot through that corner.
A little bit wide, perhaps, and just out in the marbles there. Car looked like it had some understeer. It's a big aero corner, so they use all the downforce available to them to commit there. The battle continues on for the lead. Lap 4 of 18. Macris is under serious pressure. The West is so good in that first sector, as you said, Rusty. And he gets such a good toe down the straight. And, I mean, you look at the physical size difference in these two cars. That Wolf that's leading the race punches a really big hole in the air. The West is such a diminutive little race car. It can sort of sneak up behind, I suppose, the leader and just toe his way up.
And meantime, is that earlier question mark that you made in relation to Patton starting to become a reality? Look at him here. This is now a three-way fight for the lead, and Patton, incidentally, has the fastest lap of the race so far.
1:31.16 last time around for the Sydney sider. Remember, we said that this car will be good over a race distance. The Radical really looks after its tyres. Of course, this is the home base for Radical Motorsport in Australia, so they do more laps in these cars than anywhere else in the country. So if they're going to work out a setup where they've got a good car over a race distance, if it's going to be anywhere, it'll be at Sydney Motorsport Park. Peter Patton showing that now, and he'll know to play the waiting game. He knows he's got 18 laps of the 3.9 kilometre circuit here just to bide his time and work his way forward.
I know the boys talked about it a little earlier today in the Radical Australia Cup race that we had, but you're right. I mean, the facility just out the back of the pit lane area that is dedicated just to Radicals. I walked in there yesterday because there was a problem with one of the cars during the race. I think it had dropped a cylinder or had some sort of misfire, but they've got everything in there that they could possibly need. It's geared towards giving people the opportunity to sample the cars as well and to get involved as kind of a first-timer, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it works beautifully. And conversely, that's what Jam Motorsport, who are leading this race, have got as well with their Wolf program. It's very, very similar in the way it's structured. You can rock up, jump into a really good race car and be competitive from the outset. So we're on lap 5. There's 14 to go. Macris leads Lauke by just under half a second. Peter Patton is third. JP Drake is fourth. Phil Hughes has been one of the big movers in this race. He's up to 5th place in that brightly coloured Radical SR3 of his. Braco is 6th. Sutton next. Then Bonaventura, Claire and Champion rounding out the top 10.
The Radicals are geared towards being able to take a passenger for a run as well, and I've been fortunate to do that here on 2 occasions. Once with Carl Reindler and once with none other than Mark Scaife. We were here for a fundraising initiative for the CAMS Rising Stars program, and he said, he waved to me, he said, come on, there's a vacancy here, jump in type deal, and away we went, and I could not get over that you could hold it flat through turn 1. Just exhilarating.
On that, I've had the same experience with James Winslow in a Radical SR8, the V8 powered Radical, when they ran here in Australia, and that was eye-opening. We did a 1:29, which is currently quicker than they're lapping now in this field. James said, yeah, probably wasn't quite the 80% you're supposed to do in a meeting ride, but we've had a long relationship in Formula 3, so he knew what I was up for.
Good pilot to be going for a ride with in something like this. Let's focus back on the action here now. Patton remains the fastest man, or the man with the quickest lap in this race so far, that 1:31.1764 in third, but it's just dropped off a little relative to Lauke at the moment. And Macris now starting to bolt some good sectors together as our race leader.
He is, and around the outside of turn 4 goes Phil Hughes on JP Drake. That's a big move. And I wonder if Drake's just carrying a little bit of damage to the underfloor, some of the aero componentry on his Wolf, although back down the inside at turn 6, retakes the spot with a brake lock up, runs a little bit wide. That will open the door to Hughes, who's going to have a look at 7 but can't get through. But really struggling at the moment, JP Drake. He's quite a long way off the pace that the leaders have got at the moment, and he's now involved in a pretty heady scrap for 4th and 5th position.
And it continues on.
In fact, it's 6th place as well, because Braco and the Radical has just jumped into the back of this as well. That's car number 80. Nice silver, black and blue livery. One of the Works Radical entries. So he's just jumped into the back of this freight train as well.
This lap from Macris should be a beauty because he was fastest in Sector 1, personal best in Sectors 2 and 3, and he does a 1 minute 30.655 now. New fastest lap.
Decided that that was the go point. I think put the head down and start building a margin, and probably more importantly, break the toe over Mark Lauke. So he's not open to attack at turn 1 and 2. Just to look at that move again with Hughes and Drake. It's a good bit of racing. Drake up the inside, then just locked the brake slightly and run a little bit wide, and that allowed the opportunity for the return serve, I suppose. Good to see car 42. Phil Hughes is a great competitor. Runs this car on his own. So doesn't have a team that rocks up and runs it for him. Prepares it at Hughes Supercar Services down there in Melbourne. Drives it up on the back of a Chrysler Voyager, tacked onto the back of that on a trailer, runs it himself, starts it, jumps in, straps himself in, away he goes racing. Budget operator, punches way above his weight and gets some tremendous results in what's now probably one of the oldest cars in the field.
Trying to go round the outside, Peter Patton. Lauke, I think, forces him wide, so this is really interesting. This is the battle for 2nd position as we head to the final few corners here. The Radical coming into its own through turns 8 and 9 and really closing up on the back of Lauke. And Macris has now a 2.3 second lead. He's got a little bit of breathing space over these two.
Yeah, I get the feeling Lauke used a lot of his car in the opening laps trying to stay with Macris. Cooked the tyres, used them up a little bit too early. And he's paying for that now as Macris starts to build a margin out in front. 2.4 seconds last time by. And that just opens the door for Peter Patton. The problem is the Radical is probably 10 k's an hour slower in a straight line compared to the little West WX10. So the key overtaking opportunity at turn 2 at this venue is going to be really tough for Peter Patton. He's going to have to commit at turn 9 at the hairpin and then just hope he can pull a margin so that Lauke doesn't get past again.
Lauke responds quickest in the first sector. He's gone purple through there as we continue to watch this battle a little bit further back. So Hughes and Medlin, 32. Lock break, that was from our race leader, I think Macris, was it?
Yeah, he's pushing so hard, Rusty, to try and build this margin. And he's torched that inside front Kumo a couple of times in a row. Macris was an interesting race for Jason yesterday. Actually had an oil leak in that car and it was trailing smoke, but it was also affecting the gear linkage of that car. So he was really slow through the twisty bits where they're changing gears a lot. It was hesitating out of the slow speed corners, and as he try and pull the paddle to select another gear, it wouldn't engage. So it was just banging the car off the rev limiter, which was dropping him back to the field. So I thought it was a really impressive drive from Jason to nurse that problem. It was the kind of drive that wins you a championship,
Absolutely.
Rusty, when if you can't win the race, you just try and score as many points as you can. Drive around the issues, nurse the car home. So a really mature drive from a man who's got the nickname The Missile in the paddock for Jason Macris.
Lauke down that main straight here at Sydney Motorsport Park, pulls clear of Patton, but this is where we start to see Patton come back into his own again from about turn 2 onwards. We drift back and have a look at Sutton, car 35, sits in position 7 right now.
And once again, as they cross the line, Lauke and Patton, 1.2 seconds between them, probably 25 car lengths. But when they were at turn 8 at the hairpin, no more than 30 seconds earlier, they were wheel-to-wheel racing. That's the straight line advantage that Mark Lauke's great. But that's what's so good about this style of racing, Rusty, is that there's different strengths and weaknesses for these race cars. There's 3 different constructors running in the top 3 at the moment. They're all good in different bits of the racetrack, as you touched on earlier in the race, and that's what promotes really good close motor racing like this.
And as someone who enjoys sports car racing, you even more so than me, it's a tip of the hat to open top sports cars. And I mean, and the fact that we've got different chassis coming into it is just tremendous.
Yeah, there is, and there's always more cars looking to emerge on the scene and get involved in the category. And the future is really bright in this open style of motorsport.
Here we go again.
Patton, the final corner, just trying to get the nose up the inside. But watch what happens when they get mid-straight here, and Mark Lauckey's just going to drive away. That West is so slippery, such a small frontal area. No drag on that car, and just drives away in a straight line from Peter Patton, and was 7/10 when they crossed the line, and they were nose to tail out of the final corner. So that's the straight line advantage he's got.
Meantime, Macris has been able to eke out an advantage. It's 2.6 seconds now, but it has been as high as 3 seconds. So it's helping him.
It's ebbing and flowing. I think Jason's in conservation mode now. Just manage that margin that he's built over the opening couple of laps, or these last couple of laps where he's been really impressive in just building that margin. So now he can manage that, especially while Lauckey's having to drive with one eye in the mirror because Peter Patton's attacking him every lap. Of course, when you start driving defensively, you slow yourself up and lose ground to the race leader.
They often talk about that, don't they? That when you roll off just a fraction, that's when mistakes can happen. And it's a weird thing, because ironically, staying on the limit when you're in tune like that is a good thing. Again, Patton has a look. We can just see from our commentary box position here, watching the 34 on screen. But as you can see, he's closed right back up on Lauckey again.
It feels like the only way that Peter Patton's going to be able to make this pass and get second place is by making a really big move. It's going to have to be a 100% committed kind of move, either up the inside at the hairpin there or possibly at turn 6. Because by the time they get to the Brabham front straight here at Sydney Motorsport Park, that West is so much quicker in a straight line, it's going to be unlikely that he can make a move at turn 2. They was closer this lap than he's ever been. They're tipping into turn 1. It's flat in these cars. So much aero downforce, grip from the tyre, and then the run up into 2 in the braking zone. But Patton's not close enough. It's the second half of the lap, or a mistake from Mark Lauckey.
No,
Macris slows. The leader, the championship leader, limping out of turn 2. And there's no drive in the Jam Motorsport.
He's got it. He's got it going again.
Oh, wow.
You could see it shudder when he finally was able to get it in gear. So I don't know if this is a gearbox-related problem. Oh, wow.
I wonder if this is a repeat of the gear selection issues he had yesterday. He said out of the slow corners, the car was hesitating. It wouldn't engage a gear. And that was
to go, Richard. 8 to go.
So this becomes a battle for the race lead. Mark Lauckey defending from Peter Patton. There's nothing between them. What a turn up. And the job now for Macris, surely, if the car's got a race finish in it, he must surely just limp it home. Grab some valuable championship points.
He's dropped to 11th. We'll follow that story for you. Cameron Vanderducken is in pit lane, so we'll try and get an update. Meantime, 0.3 of a second.
Well, for Cam, who'll be listening in, Aaron Steers, the team boss at Jam Motorsport, he'll be the one with the answers, if any. I'm sure Jason will have been on the radio communicating what's been going on in a calm and controlled manner. Possibly not. As the field rattles down to turn 1 again. 7 to go. And all of a sudden, we now have a really intense battle for the lead, with Mark Lauckey defending his position from Peter Patton. JP Drake up to 3rd. Braco and Hughes are having a really good scrap for 4th and 5th. And the number 80 car, that's Braco's, just got himself one position further up the field.
And the timing has just adjusted, so perhaps Macris not as far down as we thought a moment ago, but still wounded by whatever is wrong with that car. He sits, according to the timing, P8, and look at it limping. Look at it limping down the Brabham straight here, trying to get into the pit lane.
What a turn up. This was looking to be an enormous weekend for his championship. Jason Macris down the inside for the lead. Peter Patton, I said it'd have to be a bold move, and it was. Turn 6, he committed a long way out. Dive down the inside. That was a terrific pass, and the Radical gets to the front. Now Lauckey must stay as close as he can and use that straight line speed advantage down the straight to retake this position if he can.
Big lunge, dives deep, gets it done. So the question now in that whole ebb and flow is the way Lauke, as Richard has flagged here, can react. If he can stay close enough to him, use the advantage of this car, particularly here on the straight, Patton is going to have his hands full. This will be an epic battle for the remaining laps of this race.
And Patton immediately defends, dives across to the yellow line, right on the inside of the straight. Lauke hauling him in, car length after car length. Doesn't get by turn 2. A little bit of understeer through turn 1 because he was so close. And will he be close enough at turn 2? He's not. He needed to clear him before they got to that high-speed first corner. But he just got some aero understeer, Rusty. Big
That's been
push.
a heart starter, hasn't it?
Hasn't it? Just, do you think he might have decided, no, do you know what? Second is all right.
Yeah.
Championship points. And in pit lane is Jason Macris. Championship leader. What a moment. Well, we discussed at the start, Rusty, that Mark Lauke was still in contention. This is very, very much proof of that. Here's Cam.
Yeah, he's lost voltage, guys. That's what they're... so that's obviously battery power there. There's an issue, maybe alternator related, but he's lost voltage. That's cost him this race.
Look at the body language, the shaking of the head.
He'd driven so well, and that's what will be so frustrating for Jason Macris, the Marina Mirage driver, surely out of this race. The battle for the lead continues. Peter Patton now in front. Well, Garth Walden's prediction makes him look like Nostradamus,
Genius.
doesn't it? Yes. Yeah. He's only just taken over the running of this car. It's going to turn out to be a very good move for
good weekend for
first
him.
Focus car.
Very good weekend. So let's see, now that Lauke is aware of what to expect through turn 1, just what he can do. Will he, as Richard suggested here, just keep a lid on it and bring it home in second? Let's wait and see. So Peter Patton leads the way, doing a tremendous job. You're watching the battle for 5th place at the moment. Sutton holds it down in car 35.
Drake running 3rd. He's got a 5-second penalty hanging over him, and at the moment, that would actually drop him off the podium. He's got 3.8 seconds to Braco, who's running 4th. So he needs to get his head down, JP, and just build that margin as much as he can in the remaining 5 laps of this race to secure himself 3rd place. That will actually change the round result as well. Look at the timing monitor, Greg. Mark Lauke, purple first sector, fastest of anybody in the race. He's not done with yet.
Love the shape of this car. Looks amazing, doesn't it? Oh, little. Now, is that the kind of proof of what you talked about early on, about just using up this car in the early stages of the race as he chased Macris?
Had a big slide mid-corner, didn't it? Just struggling to get it stopped. I think he's just driving it at the limit. He's pushing this thing so hard, and both he and Patton are setting faster sector times. So they're both on to set the fastest lap of the race at the moment. So Peter Patton has responded. How good is this Radical? 14 of 18 laps into this race, and we're seeing purple sector times. And it's not often you see that.
It's absolutely come into its own, as you suggested before this one even got underway. So nice work by Peter Patton. 5 laps remain in this one for the prototypes. We still have lots of great racing to come your way here today at the Shannons Nationals. Grand final of the 2018 season, including, that's a good story. So he rejoins, but well down the order. 12th, according to the timing.
1 minute 30.7 for Peter Patton, personal best lap on lap 14. 1 minute 31.17 for Mark Lauke on lap 14, personal best lap. They are punching out PBs at the front in this battle for the lead. What a compelling race this has turned out to be. And just another twist in the tail of the Australian Prototype Series presented by Hot Wheels. 3 different round winners from the 3 rounds heading into this weekend, Rusty. So it's been wide open. And at the moment, Mark Lauke is on to take a round victory and become the 4th from 4. JP Drake will be pretty keen for round 5, and the championship decided to add his name to the list.
Has he settled for that? Has that been a conscious decision for him? The margin's 1.1 to Peter Patton. So, quickest lap of the race we've seen from Patton is a 1 minute 37.4. So he's absolutely, as we look at the damage to the 32 there.
Sue Hughes off the road. That's the exit of the turn 8 hairpin. Directly behind the pit lane complex here at Sydney Motorsport Park. Brings the field back around to the final complex of corners. And that's actually had quite a decent impact. So she's run wide on the exit of the corner there, has Sue, who's a hugely accomplished driver for many years, back in the production car era in pro car racing, and then through radicals now. Her son, John Collins, a champion in Australian Formula 3 racing.
Getting out of the car, from what we understand, the marshals have been talking to her and just intrigued. Hopefully we can get a look at a replay, but I mean, doesn't seem as though the only way you can explain is that she's come perhaps wide off that turn and it's hooked up and spun around back into the wall on the inside.
So backed in on the right rear or left rear corner of that car on the inside wall, the exit of the corner. It's a strange one. Not often you see that wall impacted by anybody at Sydney Motorsport Park. Great to see Sue out of the car under her own steam and in the safe hands of the officials here. Macris has still got dramas, so whatever the voltage issue is on the Marina Mirage Wolf, it continues to be a hassle, and he's just limping that car around, and hopefully he can get home and be classified for his sake and grab some points.
I can't recall, but wasn't there a big stoush between two names in supercars one year over in that about that area? It's a bit heated, got a bit heated. They don't work together now, maybe?
What's his name, Ingle, wasn't it? Yeah. What a bit of road. What a moment.
Yes.
I don't think Sue will want to compare herself to that.
No, let's not.
Great to see she's out of the car, though. A terrific competitor, loves her motorsport. Was running quite well, actually, was 11th on the road in that. Phil Hughes, by the way, unseen by us, has dropped back to, no relation, should add, back to 10th place in car number 42. So I'm not quite sure what's gone on there with one of our regular contenders in the Australian Prototype Series, but he just dropped down to the bottom of the 10 after a really strong run early in this race.
The margin between Patton and Lauke is now out to over 2 seconds, as you can see there. So Lauke perhaps with an eye on the overall round performance and the benefit of that, but Patton just has come to the fore in that radical. Yes, there's been other stories that have unfolded and perhaps contributed to that, but we're running out of laps here, and Patton looking good in the radical at present.
This has been a great drive from Peter Patton, so well judged, and that pass for the lead on Mark Lauke, easy for some to say, was really, really nice. Just committed hard down the inside of turn 6 and made the move stick, and then defended at turn 1, and that was the attack that Lauke had, and from there he's been able to build that move, but build that lead to 2.5 seconds now with a lap and a half to go. It's been a great drive for Peter Patton, who raced in the series at round 1 at the Bend Motorsport Park in the opening round of the Shannons Nationals and the APS this year. Was really impressive there. We knew he'd be a contender this weekend, but at the same time, we knew those Jam Motorsport Wolves would be really hard to beat. And so too this guy, Mark Lauke, who's just had a terrific weekend. And it's a cliche, but it's the weekend he had to have to keep his title defence alive going into the final round at Phillip Island in November. One to go.
We saw Hughes there a moment ago in the 42. It didn't look that fast through turn 1 as we drift back and have a look at Macris in car 44. And the lap time from Hughes was down in the 1 minute 39. So I just hope that car's okay. He's 10th at the moment. We concentrate back on the race lead. This is second position at the moment. So Lauke looking like wrapping up a great weekend. He trails Patton by 3.7 seconds now. So Patton in the radical with only a handful of corners left to go. Looks like taking the final one out for the weekend here.
Mark Lauke's gone in conservation mode, Rusty, so that gap's dropping. It's about a second a sector at the moment. So he's just going to settle for second and bring that car home. JP Drake, only 1.8 seconds to Braco in 4th place, so he's looking down the barrel of losing a podium here in the race. The round result may be different. He may still hold P3 on the podium overall for the weekend. But this has been hugely important for Mark Lauke. He's going to become the 4th different round winner from 4 rounds this year. And Peter Patton, what a drive. This will be one for the highlights reel, you'd think, in his career. The Sydney side has strung together a really nice 18-lap run here at Sydney Motorsport Park. He's going to come down the Brabham Straight and take out race 2, the Australian Prototype Series presented by Hot Wheels. The race goes the way of Peter Patton, but the championship contender Mark Lauke is back in the hunt. A round victory to the way of the defending champion, car number 1. A really strong day. And JP Drake has been hauled in by the number 80 Radical right towards the end of this and just edges him out for 3rd and 4th, but of course with a 5-second penalty will drop behind him in the final results. for that pretty wild start some 18 laps ago.
And Macris was able to limp the car over the line, but you've got a feel for him outside the top 10.
But should be classified, so at least he'll get some points. And from a championship perspective, he's the series leader, had to score. That's going to be absolutely vital going into the final round. What a race.
What a race. So many stories that have unfolded in this one for the Australian Prototype Series. So we recap the results for you. It's a 5.2 second victory in the end for Peter Patton. Well done. The Radical getting the job done over Mark Lauke, who has, with that second position, wrapped up a great weekend here at Sydney Motorsport Park.
Brilliant performance. And well done, Paul Braco, on debut in the Australian Prototype Series. In the Radical, just gets past JP Drake there, of course. Drake with a 5-second penalty for a start line infringement. Chris Sutton 5th and Carmelo Bonaventura in 6th place. Champion Claire, Philmeister and Hughes rounding out the top 10 in race 2, the Australian Prototype Series.
Points, that's what it's been all about. A voltage issue of some kind for Macris, but he was able to bring that car home.
What a race, and as you said, Greg, so many stories and plot twists and turns to unpick from those 18 laps. It's going to be an interesting race report, the Australian Prototype Series. It was Macris who led the field into turn 1. Drake was aggressive early. Peter Patton, the race winner, was only 3rd on the opening lap, but that Radical SR3 would come on strong. This was a huge moment. JP Drake around the outside at turn 7 with all 4 wheels off the road at 160 kilometres an hour, but was able to gather it up and hold on. He had a fantastic battle with the Radical number 42 of Hughes as they diced at turn 6, and then a great fight for what would ultimately be the race lead. Peter Patton tried, and then tried some more to find his way past Mark Lauke. Ultimately, he was able to find his way through.
It was, as you predicted, a big, bold pass that would get it done, but first we were left in shock by this. A voltage problem of some kind ultimately meant that Macris would finish outside the top 10, but at least he was able to kind of resuscitate the car to keep it going and salvage something, some points at least.
He got the car to pit lane, he got the car back on the racetrack and was able to finish the race in 11th place, in confirmation that he was actually classified. This was the key moment, a big, bold move down the inside at turn 6 and a pass for the lead and ultimately the win for Peter Patton. So as soon as Macris was out of the race lead, that was a great fight. Sue Hughes, unfortunately, in the wall at turn 8, but okay. And in the end, a huge win, an important win for Peter Patton on home turf. And in the end, a round victory for Mark Lauke. He takes the weekend by 3 points, with JP Drake rounding out the podium.